China-Pakistan relationship is in trouble right now. That's a lost opportunity for the United States. Pakistan has its own value apart from India. The outgoing Chief of Army Staff Bajwa made that very clear, and most Pakistani leaders, elected and military, have made that clear.
Hello friends, welcome to another edition of this special guest in Islamabad. Today, this is Adam Weinstein. He's associated with the Quincy Institute in Washington, has been busy in multiple projects, also served in Afghanistan as a Marine. So welcome Adam here back to Islamabad.
Thank you, it's always great to be here.
Yeah, so what brought you here this time?
Well, I had a couple conferences, one in Karachi, the Future Summit, and one hosted by ISSI in Islamabad. And of course, I came here to talk to different people and try to get an idea of what's going on in the country.
And one of the favorite subjects, obviously, is the us-Pakistan relationship. It seems to have been suffering from various setbacks and has been at a stalemate, I would say, particularly after the US withdrawal from Afghanistan in August 2021. Can this relationship bounce back from the setbacks it has got, particularly maybe to this time when President Asif Ali Zardari was in power?
Well, you know, I guess it depends what you mean by bounce back. I would say we should bounce forward because going back to the times of Zardari, I don't think would be advisable. I think we have to have a relationship that's robust, not because of the war in Afghanistan or just security issues, but because of, a genuine recognition of our mutual importance to one another, trade, people-to-people relations. When President Biden released his national security strategy, some Pakistani friends here told me that they felt slighted that Pakistan hadn't been listed in the strategy. They felt maybe it was making Pakistan less relevant. And I said, it's an opportunity that Pakistan's not listed in the national security strategy, not included in that strategy, because it wouldn't be included for the reasons Pakistanis want it to be included. I promise you that. And so it's not always a good thing to be in the national security strategy. And so what I really mean by that is I think we need to move away from this securitized relationship and towards a broader one. But of course, that's difficult because Pakistan's facing serious security concerns right now.
But other than security threats and challenges, what are the real bottlenecks in the relationship between the United States and Pakistan?
I think there's a creativity deficit. I think there's the issue of it's difficult sometimes for US diplomats to navigate the, electoral politics on one end and the establishment on the other end of the spectrum, and sort of to walk the tightrope between those two centers of power. I think, but ultimately, the biggest thing is just a deficit of creativity on both sides. That this relationship can be more than just talking about F-16s or terrorism in Waziristan. We can actually talk about trade, we can talk about people-to-people exchanges, we could talk about educational exchanges, we can work together on climate change, and also a recognition that Pakistan by 2050 might be the third most populous country in the world. It already has over 200 million people. It's projected to be number 3. There is an inherent importance to that. And I think if the development of Pakistan is something that the United States should be concerned about.
And what about the India factor as far as Pakistan-US relationship is concerned? Do you think that is a big bottleneck as well, just because of the strategic nature that now binds both the United States and India?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, which is that it's strategic, it's transactional. The Indo-Pacific strategy is a transactional relationship that's based on having this sort of coalition to contain China, if you will. I don't think that strategy in itself is a threat to Pakistan. Sure, the United States will use language like, oh, we have shared values with India and we have this and that. I think the reality is that it's a very transactional relationship. It was interesting that after the war in Ukraine kicked off, there were folks in Washington, maybe not in government, but at least outside of government in the policy community, who were shocked that India took an independent line and an independent stance and said, no, we're going to keep our relations with Russia. And I think it was a real wake-up call that, look, no, this relationship is not about values. This relationship is not about a coalition in all things. This relationship is a very narrow transactional relationship that has to do with the Indo-Pacific strategy. And I actually think it would benefit Pakistanis if they stopped worrying so much about India. I know that's easy for me to say, but I actually think Pakistan has its own value apart from India, and Pakistan needs to decouple itself from India when it thinks about Pakistan-US relations.
Yeah, you may be right, but then the other issue that pops in is the soft power that India deploys abroad in its relationship with Europe, with the United States. And this is what it apparently has used to also keep Pakistan at bay, hasn't it?
Well, look, to some degree, yes, but that's Pakistan needs to get better at soft power then. India is good at soft power. It has some advantages. There's a massive Indian diaspora of non-resident Indians who live in the United States. There's a massive Indian American population that has been friendly towards India, and they've been incredible ambassadors for India. Whereas the Pakistani American diaspora is just now becoming involved in policy debates and previously wasn't really a part of the conversation in Washington. That's changing. Also, just the fact that India has had IT exports for so many years and is close with the tech industry in California, in Silicon Valley, that's been a real value add. Many of those tech CEOs that became big names, when they were young, they spent time in India. And that's because India made it easy to visit India. So these are all things that Pakistan could replicate if it chose to.
Mm-hmm. The other factor is China, Pakistan-China relationship. They seem to be very good, touted as the deeper than the Indian Ocean and the higher than the Himalayas. But does this relationship also cast any shadow on the US, basically approaching Pakistan with an open arms?
I really don't think so. I think the limitation is that sometimes there's areas within Pakistan, such as infrastructure development, where from the US perspective, well, that's China's domain and we don't really want to be a part of it. And I think, that's, in my personal opinion, that's a lost opportunity for the United States. But I think the United States understands that Pakistan is in a position where it's going to seek a close relationship with China and the United States. And the outgoing Chief of Army Staff, Bajwa, made that very clear. And most Pakistani leaders elected and in the military have made that clear. So I don't think that's a problem for the United States. I do think the China-Pakistan relationship is in trouble right now due to issues with CPEC and due to the security of Chinese workers inside Pakistan. But I actually don't think that a negative China-Pakistan relationship is necessarily in the interests of the United States.